Good evening, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Welcome to Uncensored, where we go in depth with the key newsmaker about issues that matter to them and matter to you. I said it last time and I'll say it again because it is so important to emphasise there's no editing, no shouting and no debates. We're here to ask our guests the tough questions no matter their political views. We also want to hear from you, the viewer, so join the conversation by using hashtag 6newsau in the comments or on social media, or you can email your feedback to us as well, contact at 6newsau.com. You can also subscribe to us right here on YouTube with full notifications for more unbiased news coverage, and help keep us independent by donating just $4 a month on Patreon for a world of exclusive benefits at patreon.com/6newsau. Rukshan Fernando, better known as Real Rukshan, has been thrust into the spotlight over his footage and live streams of the recent protests in Melbourne, but there's actually been a bit of division over what to call him. Is he an independent journalist, a wedding photographer, or just a right-wing activist? I spoke to him earlier from the newsroom. Rukshan Fernando, welcome to 6 News.
Thanks for having me on here, Leonardo.
Great to have you here. Now, a lot gets said about you on social media. Let's just start off in your own words. Who are you? Who is the real Rukshan? Are you a journalist? Are you a live streamer? Are you a right-wing antagonist, as some have suggested?
I am an independent journalist and content creator. You could maybe even call me a YouTuber now. But yeah, that's mainly how I see myself. And I know other people have put all sorts of labels on you, and you just mentioned some of those labels then, but I don't prescribe to them. I see myself truly as a independent journalist.
So you call yourself that, but I think you have faced, as you just touched on there, some criticism and some pushback for doing so.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that has, I guess, been based on my previous career or even current business that I do, which is as a wedding photographer or in the wedding industry. So a lot of people have used that to say that, he's just a wedding photographer. And other people have said, based on type of coverage that I do and the type of events that I cover, that I'm somehow associated with those groups. And like you mentioned before, calling me wing. So it's just associations that other people have created. I don't see myself that way. And I'm fully aware of my previous career and what I do as a business, but I don't think that has anything to do with what I'm doing right now.
Do you agree with everything these anti-lockdown and anti-mandatory vaccine protesters have been saying?
No. I've been trying to make that very clear as well. In a lot of the interviews and stuff is that I don't always share the same views, and what I'm doing is just documenting something that is happening out in my community. So by doing that doesn't necessarily mean that I share those views, and I think that's where a lot of the interpretations of what I'm doing is getting mixed up, because I think people feel that I'm giving people a platform and therefore I share those views, when I don't necessarily see it that way at all.
Now, these live streams of protests that you've done, and especially these recent ones, are arguably what you're most well known for. What does qualify you to call yourself a journalist? Because in itself, live streaming on Facebook does not make someone a reporter. Can you explain what else you actually do that allows yourself to call yourself a journo?
Yeah, so I mean, the live streaming is actually not my primary thing that I do. So the live stream is just a phone that's attached to my camera rig that I'm filming with. So I do I guess something more you could classify as video journalism. So I go to events like this, I document them, and I share that information, and I share that story later on with the video edit. So the live stream just happens to be something I'm doing on the side, and obviously because it's happening live, a lot of people have tuned into it, but that's not the primary kind of format or medium that I deliver my content in.
Yeah, how many viewers are you actually getting on some of these live streams? I know at times they were beating outlets like Channel 7. What are the numbers you're seeing?
Yeah, look, I mean, when I'm paying attention to the numbers when I'm filming, once I saw about 75,000 people, I think. I've heard people say it's gone up to 90 to 100,000. So, I've definitely seen 70,000 people on one particular live stream watching.
It's pretty impressive numbers. What do you think or who do you think your audience is made up of? Is it supporters of these protests? Is it journalists watching to get footage from? What do you reckon?
Look, from seeing the comments, because I actually do like a bit of a debrief afterwards and read through all the comments, and I've obviously chatted to a few people after that as well, and it's a mix of everyone. I guess it's on online on Facebook, and it gets shared around, and everyone kind of tunes in. So whether you agree with the protesters or whether you're against them or whether you're neutral, it doesn't matter. It's just something that's kind of happening out in the community at that moment. I think a lot of people tune into it. So there's no set demographic, but obviously people who would support these kind of protests would be tuning in. But I've noticed a lot more people from all sorts of different viewpoints and perspectives tuning in and having their say as well.
What's it like when you see your own footage on nightly news bulletins on pretty much every station and even around the world?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the way I look at it, a lot of the videos that I shoot, even the stuff that I film on my actual video rig, I put that out there and I allow it to be used for news and commentary purposes, because I think a lot of this footage is not getting out there. So I'm more than comfortable with it being used and shared around for the purposes of informing people of some of the things that are happening in my city and in my town. So yeah, like I don't have a particular view of what it means to have it on those platforms and be shown, but I think it's a good thing overall that these kind of views and perspectives are getting out there as well.
And along with just streaming the rallies, I know you do come up just to people and speak to them, including some who said at times what some say are pretty outrageous things. Do you sometimes regret giving these people a platform? Would you just want to let people make up their own minds?
Look, I wouldn't so much say regret. Uh, like I'm aware of, like for instance, on the platforms used that there's certain community guidelines and standards, and you can run afoul of that sometimes because you never know what people are going to say. But having said that, you would want to think that people should be allowed to say what they want to say, and kind of entitled to share those opinions. And a lot of times I am listening, very carefully to see if it's going to cross the line into a space that shouldn't be aired in terms of, derogatory statements about particular people or anything like this. But more often than not, I'm happy for people to kind of say what they want to say, particularly if it's on topic and related to what's actually happening during those protests.
And of course, big tech outlets, platforms rather, like Facebook and of course YouTube in recent days have been cracking down on what they say is misinformation. Are you worried your page could get shut down? Because from what I've seen, that is where you're mainly getting these views and engagement.
Yeah, I mean, some censorship, big tech kind of shutting down platforms. That's something that's always on the back of the mind for someone like me, and I think for a lot of organizations. You saw them shut down pretty much all of news for a while there in Australia. So, these companies wield a lot of power, and I guess it's a constant back and forth in terms of where that ends up. But, as far as me being out there, of my community, members of, the community of Victoria and Melbourne, to share their thoughts and views, as a part of the democratic process, I think that's vital. And whether the media or big tech shuts it down, that's on them. And there's plenty of other different platforms where people can still share these views. So I think it's important that debates and these discussions are had in forums where everyone can engage. And for right now, I think it's a good thing that I exist. And if big tech were to shut me down, well, it's something I'll have to deal with down the track.
Yeah, and pages being shut down isn't exactly a foreign concept for us at Six News. We had our Facebook page shut down even before that news ban. We've had our YouTube account suspended twice for things we didn't do that they admitted to. Is it true? And I've said this. I've rather seen this said a few times that people have come up to you during these protests and offered you donations so you can keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, here and there, it's not like a common thing. It's very rare, but here and there, people come up and want to donate, and show some support. So it does happen. Not sure, what's led to that, but yeah, that does happen here and there.
And what do you tell them? Do you accept the donations?
Oh, look, I'm very clear that I don't want any donations. I'm trying to not be seen in that way that I'm soliciting money from people during these live streams or whatever I'm doing out on the field. That's not why I'm there. And I understand that people might be enjoying what I'm doing, or happy that I'm doing this, or they feel that it's much needed or whatever it is, and they want to support me. But I think it's important to kind of not be accepting donations and money while you're doing work like that on the field.
It's probably not a good time for us to plug our Patreon then. What do you make of the mainstream reporters who've also been on the ground, including, but not limited to, of course, Channel 7's Paul Dowsley, who faced multiple attacks from these protesters, while people like you and Avi Yemini have been praised?
Yeah, look, I mean, no one wants to, see anyone getting, things thrown at them or being violently attacked when they're doing their job. People should be allowed to do their job without, any of this kind of thing hanging over their head. And, I think the mainstream media, perhaps in this particular crowd of protesters, they're unpopular because some of their anger is actually directed towards people that they see as a part of the mainstream media. And I think that's what you're getting there. Whereas, I don't think they, I've had people in the crowd sometimes here and there tell me, don't shove that camera in my face, or, move away and things like this. So it is a mixed bag. But in the current context of those protests, I kind of see why those people behave in that way towards media, but I don't condone it. I think it's a bad thing. And good on the journalists from those mainstream channels for still getting out there and trying to cover those cover what's happening as well.
I'll get back to the media in a moment, but I know there's been a lot of talk about who was at those recent protests. From what you've seen, were there any non-traders, or even if someone suggested far-right people there? Because I know there's been posts where people have said to wear high-vis, bring family. There's been a tradie vest taken off and left. There was one person who commented, and of course this is all unverified, we should point out that authorities won't be able to tell who's a tradie and who's not. You have been there. What are you seeing?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously the protests in Melbourne happened over a period of days. So as the days went on, the crowd did kind of change, and it's really hard to ascertain who is who. But from from my own personal thing that I saw, especially in the first 2 days, majority of people there were a part of some sort of trade or a part of the construction industry. And if by the time that it got to the shrine protest, it's possible that other groups had kind of come in and I wouldn't say hijacked, but kind of joined in and tried to blend in type thing. And it's really hard to say exactly what percentage and who's what, and who's from this trade or who's from that trade and who's just a troublemaker. So it was a mixed bag there towards the end, but it's very hard to say exactly definitively like this was this and these people or those people. So that's my view on that.
Yeah, now I think you came into the spotlight after a few pieces done on you recently, including by The Age and the ABC's Media Watch. Do you think they painted you in a fair light?
Look, I mean, at least The Age, they gave me an opportunity to comment. Media Watch, and I think there was some other thing, Crikey. I didn't really get that opportunity to comment on whatever they were saying. So, overall, there is some inaccuracies there. Some of the links that they try to make about what my intentions are and what might be driving me to do these kind of things, I think are misguided. And as far as them being somewhat of a hit piece or some attempt to discredit me, like I'm pretty neutral to it. I think if anything, in the type of field that I'm working in and the type of work that I'm doing, I look at some of those attacks as potentially being endorsements of what I do, because I see issues with the media overall and the way they're behaving in terms of covering these type of events. So yeah, I think it goes to both ways. As much of it as it is a hit piece of some sort. For me, it's some sort of endorsement as well.
So, yeah, do you personally trust mainstream media?
Yes and no, to an extent. That's shifted over the years for me. Today, I'm much more attuned to the language that they use and the way in which they present information. So it's not so much a matter of trust; it's more so it's just a source of information. It's not the ultimate source of truth. For instance, I'm happy to consume what they show. I'm happy to take the information and then look at that against any other source of information that might help inform my decisions. So I don't think it's particularly about trusting them. It's just, I understand the space that they're working in and what they're doing, and I'm going to also use other tools and resources available to me to make up my own mind.
So when you're not at these protests and when there's not protests going on, what else are you doing in terms of independent journalism?
Yeah, sure. So I'm researching for certain articles that I'm doing or certain videos that I'm making. Obviously, with everything that's kind of gone on recently, I've had a lot of people reaching out to me as well. So I'm in contact with a lot of different people in terms of, their personal stories and their struggles or whatever it is that I'm listening to. And, they might want me to cover a story. So there's all that kind of things that are going on in the background. So a lot of the other things that I do are more around analysis. So I'm watching different, whether it's a press conference or, a hearing or whatever it is, and just kind of comparing making summaries and things like this. So it's a mix of everything at the moment.
Just finally, how do you think the public's attitude towards mainstream outlets has changed since the pandemic began? And we've seen this, what some say is a rise of independent outlets, 6 News included. Is this a trend that could continue post-COVID?
I think so. I think the media have really done themselves a disservice in the manner in which they've carried themselves throughout this period of the pandemic. A lot of people, I don't want to use the word awoken to what the media is up to, but I think a lot more people are skeptical of some of the claims made in the media and the way they go about things. So it's refreshing to see in Australia outlets like yourself, and many other independent journalists and media outfits that are kind of filling that void almost, and sharing certain stories and information that the media would have normally shared any other time in history. But for some reason during this pandemic, they've decided just to kind of go down one path. And I think that's where you've seen people shift their eyeballs towards other outlets, because people are curious. People, they're seeing information elsewhere. They're seeing information from international outlets. They're seeing things, from all around the world, and they're wondering, why isn't, the nightly news or whatever show they're watching, 60 Minutes, Four Corners, doesn't matter what it is. Why aren't they kind of covering these stories as well? So I think that way, in that sense, people have realized the potential value in independent sources of media. And I think it's a good thing for the landscape overall. And, having diversity in the media, having a lot of voices, it's a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Rukshan, Fernando, thanks for your time and for joining us here on 6 News.
Thanks for having me on, Leonardo.
There we go. That was Rukshan Fernando speaking to me earlier from the newsroom. Again, we want to hear what you have to say on both our program and what he had to say. Join the conversation by using hashtag 6NewsAU in the comments or on social media, or you can email your feedback to us as well. Contact at 6newsau.com. Reminder, you can also subscribe to us right here on YouTube with full notifications for more great unbiased news content, and help keep us independent by donating just $4 a month on Patreon for a world of exclusive benefits. Find out more at patreon.com/6newsau. Don't forget to have your say on who we should interview next as well. Let us know in the comments. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.